before we get started, though, let's do a quick introduction. Oscar, would you like to introduce yourself and let us know where you're from, what you hope to learn today? Okay, Lexi, would you like to do a quick introduction? Okay, Oscar's having audio issues. Okay.
Hi, my name is Lexi, and I've spent the last 14 years in criminal justice and developed a real interest in cloud security. So I thought that today the information would be pretty useful in trying to figure out what ways to get in there.
Yeah.
I don't have too much of a history in computer science. However, I definitely have the acumen to learn, and I'm very eager to get into the space. So far, I've been mostly focused on cloud security. I've been prepping, some people said it's kind of worthless, but I've been prepping to do the CCSK exam.
Okay.
Just as like a step to learn some things, but I'm definitely excited about what you can show us today.
Okay, yeah, I'd be happy to go through some of that as well. All right, and it looks like Oscar has chatted in. He is in IT, but wants to get into cloud infosec as well. Okay, well, great. So I'll talk about, as far as getting into the cloud, and I'll be happy to talk a little bit more about cloud security to give you some thoughts on that as well. Let me go ahead and let Lena in here. And let's get started. All right, so let me share my screen. And if you have any questions, feel free to put the questions in the chat. And let me get the right screen. There it is. And again, for those that just joined, Lena, welcome aboard. We just went through quick introductions. Also, feel free to download in the chat. There's a presentation and some other files as well. And I do need to add an ebook in there as well. I forgot to add that, it looks like. So I'll do that here shortly. Okay. As far as today, we want to talk about what exactly is this cloud architect and what do you need to do to become one and all that fun stuff, right? So I do have actually recorded versions of this course, the Cloud Engineer course, and I'm also putting together, I just hired a DevOps engineer to work with to talk about getting into cloud DevOps. And I also have one on cloud security, but that won't be released until probably September, October. But anyways, I'll talk about specifically security. I know that was something of interest to Lexi and Oscar. And Lena, if you want to do a quick introduction, let us know where you're from and what you hope to learn. I'll be happy to take a second for that if you like. Okay. Great. Nope, no worries. All right, let's get started. All right, and hopefully you can see my screen okay. So as far as how to become a cloud architect with no experience, well, to be honest, anything that we do in life is going to take some work, as we already probably know. It's not the easiest thing to become a cloud architect. However, the barrier to entry, I think, is a lot lower now because there's just a huge demand for people. And I think one of the things that I'll talk about is the evolution of the cloud. The cloud has become just so far and wide that, yes, you can go out there and get a job and do cloud security full time. I would say even 5 years ago, that was difficult to do, but now companies are literally hiring people full time to just handle their cloud security. Everything from IAM over to basically Kubernetes security, over to API security, and not to mention your day-to-day, attacks you have to deal with and all that. So there's a lot of just opportunities in the cloud. But again, just to be honest, I'm not here to to try to make it sound like it's going to be perfect for everyone and that it's going to be easy either. So there's a lot of work that'll have to be done. But let's talk about what exactly a cloud architect is, why you might want to become one, what a cloud architect does day to day, what are some of the skills that you need to become a cloud architect. I'll talk about the career path options, salary expectations, training options, coaching options, interview techniques. I'll also go through some interview questions that typically come up quite a bit. I'll go through LinkedIn as well and point out some of the jobs that may be really nice jobs. And I'll talk about some of the jobs that maybe they're looking for 3 people instead of 1. And that's going to be something that you're going to run into quite a bit as well. Because if you get on LinkedIn or even Dice or Monster, whatever site you use, you'll notice that a lot of the roles, they'll say entry level, but they want 8 years experience, or they want someone that's been in IT 30 years, right? So you have to just realize that for every job you look at, there's probably 3 of them that aren't going to be any interest that'll go along with that one job, right? So maybe 1 out of 4 jobs might be a good job for you to apply for. So this is the thing that I'll point out when I go through that. I'll also talk about a roadmap and give you some insights on how you get started. I always like to tell folks if you're working full time already, you may not want to just stop everything and just go full time into cloud computing right away, learning it. It's again, your call on what you can do in your life and what you can afford, right? But one of the things that I always recommend is try to take things in baby steps, right? Do a little at a time and build up. And next thing you know, in 6 months or 9 months, you're going to be able to answer why you should use Azure over AWS, or you'll be able to really understand, why AWS is a better choice than, Google Cloud. And these are the things that you'll want to get in your head going into the interview. Because one thing with cloud architect, let me just clarify too. So a cloud architect is going to be technical, but it's not super technical in a lot of what I would call environments, to the point where you need to know how to deploy a Kubernetes cluster or anything. It's technical to understand how things work. You'll have to do a lot of whiteboarding. Typically, it's a pre-sales role as well in a lot of organizations. And I'll get into that in more detail. I'll also provide you additional resources as well. So we'll go through whiteboards and demos, and there is a free ebook as well. I'll put that in there before we close. I don't believe I have to download it and then re-upload it again. And then I'll provide advice and then some links as well. Okay. All right, quick introduction. I've been in IT. Okay, just for those that just joined, welcome aboard. Is it Fabi, I believe? Again, we just got started. With that said, just a quick introduction. I've been in IT for 25 plus years. I started out in the military. I was in the Navy, and I learned effectively Unix. At the time, mainly BSD Unix, and then got out and did HP Unix, and then got into Solaris and IBM, and then I got into data storage. And then about probably 10 or 12 years ago, I got into cloud, and that was really with Google App Engine, and that was before Google Cloud was actually Google Cloud. So once I got into App Engine, I did a lot of what I would call development advocate roles, and so we did a lot of cloud computing, managed services as well over the last few years. But the last probably 4 or 5 years, I've been strictly in coaching and training. I do actually have some side gigs that I work with companies on designing clouds or solving problems. So sort of been my focus for the last few years. I am based in Jacksonville, Florida as well. And I'm also a published author in in various areas such as blockchain and Google Cloud. So what is this cloud architect? And that's a good question, because I still really can't give you a solid definition of what it is, but here's sort of a good definition. And the reason I'm saying I can't give you a good definition is because a cloud architect is going to be a role that's really defined by the company that you're working for. And their idea of a cloud architect might be pre-sales over here, but then it's post-sales over at this company. And when we go through LinkedIn, you'll see how, how different the requirements can be. Sometimes a cloud architect may actually be a cloud developer. Sometimes it might be a cloud engineer. And I've seen a lot of cases where now you have cloud security architects. So that's another hybrid role that, I've seen the last few years pop up as well. So a cloud architect is really responsible for the overall managing of the cloud compute environment. And it's really focused on ensuring that the company is able to manage their resources in the cloud. Now, generally, these are IT specialists. So we see a lot of IT people that, have been in IT, work in the cloud as well. Now, that doesn't mean if you're not in IT now that you can't become a cloud architect. It's going to be harder. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. You'll have a lot to learn around IT security. You'll have a lot to learn around DevOps, and Linux is going to be a big area as well. But basically, a pre-sales architect, a cloud architect, a systems engineer, these are going to be some of the roles you'll see. Typically, a cloud architect is going to be a highly paid cloud professional. Now, I can't speak, for every location or every country, but I will say in the US, the average of a cloud architect is going to be probably, and that's with a few years experience, could be anywhere from 90,000 to 130,000 a year for someone with, maybe 5 years experience. And it could be even higher depending on your location. So it's a very high paying role. Now, some of the roles that overlap, what I mean by overlap is if you're already doing a cloud or IT role, you're going to probably have already some of the requirements in the bag. So you don't need to worry about having to learn what Linux is or Windows or understand what an API is, right? These are things that you're going to have already, already in your portfolio of capabilities. If you're already in, for example, DevOps, this is going to be a great role for you because technically it probably might be about the same from a technical perspective, but from a fun perspective, it might be higher. Generally, people that are, and again, I'm not saying that this is always true, but generally in a lot of companies, what I have found as a pre-sales architect is people that are really good with people, that like to go out and meet with people and solve problems, will make a great cloud architect. If you're more of an individual contributor and you just want to sit in your cubicle in a corner and not really talk to people, you want to solve code or solve problems, this may not be a great role because in most of the companies, this is more of a frontline role, as I like to call it, like a pre-sales role. On the other hand, some enterprises, you might just be working inside your own enterprise. So the point here is just be aware that a cloud architect could be just about anything right now. It's all over the map. Okay, welcome aboard, Mary. As far as the roles that could be a really good fit from, a natural parallel, could be a solutions engineer, a systems engineer, IT engineer, a database administrator, or even a pre-sales engineer. So these are some of the roles that I think, if you're already in, you may be a great fit to be a cloud architect. But again, just be aware that, what you're doing now may or may not be relevant to another company. So who knows, right? The goal of, working with people is to help you determine where you're at and then put together a roadmap to make sure that you get the skills that you want, that you want to get so that you can meet all the requirements, right? And that's the challenge. Okay, I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit. I just wanted to make sure that we understood that. Let me have a question. Oh, okay. Welcome, Mary. Yep. Wrong Zoom link. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I'm not sure why the link didn't post directly on Meetup, because I have my Zoom connected to Meetup and it makes it hideously easy. I don't even have to paste it. It usually plugs right in. Okay. So what are the requirements to be a cloud architect? So generally, we're going to be looking at someone that is able to get a degree in IT. Now, that doesn't mean you need an IT degree. It's just that if you have a degree in IT, and IT being info tech or computer science related, or it could be something parallel technical like engineering, that's a really solid start, because a lot of companies really do want to see a technical degree. However, rest assured, not every company could care about that. As long as you know how to do the work, they don't care about the degree. Now, if you want to go out and work for companies like Accenture, KPMG, Deloitte, or something, you're going to need to have a master's degree in a lot of cases. On the other hand, if you just have an associate's in electronics engineering, that's still technical. It's just that, a lot of these larger, I guess, organizations, conglomerates, whatever the term I should use, they don't really want to look past the degree because of the fact that their clients want to see it and they just can't look past it. But if you go to other companies that are small or mid-sized, they don't care. It's not going to be a big deal. You can go over here to Bank of America, and as long as you want to work for the salary they pay, they don't care. So that's just the reality of the current job market. So whether you have a degree or not, I don't want you to be concerned about that. It's just that, sure, it probably will be harder to find a role, just because you've narrowed your pool of companies, I guess, is the way to look at it. All right, so certifications, though, you're going to need to get certifications, and I'll talk about those coming up here shortly. Generally, too, the smaller the company, the lower the incoming requirements. This is generally going to be true pretty much 90% of the time. I think also, too, it's important to realize that as the economy changes, which, it seems to be pretty rapidly, some of these requirements may get waived, or maybe they won't, who knows? But what are some of these requirements? A cloud architect, as I had mentioned before, will need to really be focused on pre-sales or enterprise architecture. So you're going to be doing a lot of meetings is sort of the point, right? You're going to be meeting with people, working with whiteboards. You'll be whiteboarding stuff like crazy. You'll need to develop the architectures and understand, like, what does this company have on-prem and what do we need to do to put it in the cloud, right? It's all about understanding, where do we go from here to there, right? What does the customer need? Do we have to do a lift and shift migration, or is it a VM migration? What is the requirement, right? So as part of some of these common requirements, this is the areas that, as a cloud architect, you'll probably want to really master. So understand cloud adoption strategies and migrations as well, but also risk mitigation, I should say. So risk mitigation means that you're going to be able to understand if I migrate this way, or if I deploy a new application, what is the risk, and is it higher, is it lower? What do I do to ensure that I don't lose any of the company's data, or there isn't an outage for some strange reason, right? So it's all about that. And lastly, whiteboarding and presentation skills. That's going to be a big one generally. All right, so why should you become a cloud architect? Lots of great reasons. Career growth, it's in the top 10 roles pretty consistently between a lot of the different analyst firms, but also the job sites as well, like LinkedIn. I think last year, was it, what was that organization? Was it LinkedIn? I think it was Indeed or Monster, one of those. They said that cloud architect was like number 2 on the most desired list for employers. So it's, there is definitely a lot of demand out there. The salary, right? The salary is pretty high. And to be honest, it's generally a fun role. I know when I was doing a lot of pre-sales and, systems engineering, a lot of that could come down to, getting on a plane and going to this city, making a presentation, whiteboarding stuff out, coming back, doing a session online, whatever it was, right? So it's generally a fun job as well. Now, the barrier to entry, what I mean by that is there's still a lot of demand to where employers are still willing to overlook certain things, and they're not like going to be super hard or hard set. I guess, what is the term I'm looking for here? Persistent, I think, on having like a degree in a lot of cases, or prior experience, especially if you're just getting into the cloud. Sometimes if you have sales experience, that's actually a good start. So if you sold cars before, it's not going to be a long shot to convince them that if you could sell a $35,000 car, that you could probably learn how to sell cloud, right? And the reality is that it's probably a lot simpler and it's more profitable for everyone. I think too, technically challenging, and what I mean by that is for a lot of folks, if you like to solve problems and you like to listen and you like to build, this could be a great role. And lastly, again, as I had mentioned, the degree probably won't be needed in a lot of cases. Here's some links on some basically like on ZDNet, the top 10 roles in most demand in 2020. Cloud engineering, cloud architecture was on there. You'll see the different links from like Global Knowledge, Robert Half. These are just some of the potential links you can look at. All right, let's talk about what a cloud architect does. Is there any questions on anything before I continue? Okay, great. All right, so what's this cloud architect really do? And as I had mentioned, right, it's all dependent on the company, but in general, here's a high level of what you probably should expect. You're going to plan for deployment to the cloud. In other words, you're going to go into organizations. It could be an enterprise. It could be like a company like, General Electric or Bank of America, or it could be, for example, Florida Blue. It could be CSX. It could be a really large organization, and they're going to have enough to hire 4 or 5 cloud architects to keep you busy for a while. On the other hand, you could be working for a small startup, or you could be working for a vendor like VMware. Now, VMware, they pay really well if you get on with them. I talked to them several times. It's just that a lot of their roles, they just want someone to travel 100% of the time. So if you want to travel, you like doing that, and you want to do that, then, it might be really easy to get a job if you could just sell yourself based on that. when it comes to services for deployment to the cloud, right? It's about understanding how do I migrate SQL to AWS or Google Cloud, right? It's about understanding what you need to do that. Whiteboarding. Again, I keep saying whiteboarding because it's going to be a skill that surprisingly a lot of folks don't like doing. It's up there with public speaking, I guess. A lot of people do seem to have fear of whiteboarding. I don't know why. I should have fear because I'm a horrible writer, but I don't. I actually like whiteboarding. I like drawing things out. For me, I'm a visual learner. I think too that might help. If you're the type of learner that's visual, for you to draw something out, right? It's a natural thing. On the other hand, if you're not a visual learner, you're more of a reader or more of a listener, maybe it might be more challenging. I don't know. I'm just sort of throwing some thoughts out there. So I just want to make sure you get the whiteboarding is going to be on there over and over. And this is usually part of, like, I'll show you when I get to the jobs on LinkedIn. This is part of the presentation skills that you'll need to have. That's usually how the employee or how the employers will sort of describe what they're looking for. Okay, you'll need to work on cloud contract negotiations. Okay, so this is also too, again, pre-sales, right? This is going to be working with the vendor in a lot of cases, or if you're in an enterprise, right, a large company, you're going to have to work with the vendors to get the best contract for your organization. Do you need reserved instances on AWS, or do you need to have, for example, specific App Engine instances at a higher discount than what you're getting, right? It's about understanding what you need and understanding how to correlate the prices and get the best discounts. And honestly, pricing is not easy to deal with in so many cases. I'll tell you, you will see organizations fight over literally 10 cents on $1 million sometimes. I've had customers, literally try to, get everything they can, and I get it, right? We get it, right? Everybody wants a good deal, but you'll see, that this is going to take patience as well, because you're going to have to deal with people and you're going to have to deal with pricing. Now, generally, as a cloud architect, you're going to have, if you work for a vendor or an IT organization, you'll have generally some kind of sales team you'll work with. If you're an enterprise architecture, more or less, you'll have an enterprise architecture team that you'll be working with. So with monitoring, you'll need to monitor for SLAs. So an SLA is stating that the provider is going to give you this, and you want to make sure that they're giving you that, right? If they say 99.95% uptime, you don't want to get 90% uptime, right? So you'll need to make sure that you keep an eye on that. So some of the tasks as well could continue to where you'll need to put together proposals. This is really true, especially in the larger sales organizations or government or educational focused organizations, where you'll need to put together RFPs, requests for proposals. You'll be more or less pre-sales focused or in an enterprise architecture role, as I had mentioned. Lastly, too, you'll want to make sure that the stakeholder requirements are met, right? It's about understanding if the customer says they need 100 VMs that are going to perform at so many transactions per second, you'll need to validate that. If they have compliance requirements that have to be met, you'll have to make sure of that, right? All right, so what are these skills you really need to become a cloud architect? Linux. Again, Linux is sort of funny because depending on if you're a cloud architect, you may not be working quite a bit with Linux or databases. But if you're like a cloud engineer, you're going to have to do a lot of hands-on. But if you've done hands-on in Linux, databases, programming, networking, security, etc., you're going to have a hands up on a lot of people. So you'll need to have Linux database skills, programming skills, at least from a theoretical perspective. So what I mean is, if you're going to be hands-on, that's like a cloud engineer. But if you're going to want to know the theory and how things work at a high level from a whiteboard perspective, if you have hands-on experience, you're going to be a great architect. If you don't, it's going to be a struggle because you'll have to keep looking stuff up and, trying to not answer things incorrectly. So some of these skills will be very important. So DevOps, containers, virtualization, cloud providers, APIs, right? These are the skills you'll want to really focus on. And this is true really in any cloud role. So if you want to be a security guru or a developer, it's the same thing. It's just that the level you need between each of the roles could be different. For example, for me, I came from a Linux background. I came from, Unix and Linux. So wasn't a big deal. VMs, I knew VMware earlier than most people because we were a beta site for VMware at one of the military bases that I worked at 2 decades ago, literally, or even, it was a long time ago. And so I think a lot of it comes into what you like to do and what you're learning and what you're willing to learn as well. And that will help you get a better role as well. So don't be concerned per se if you're more of a salesperson and you're technical, then you're going to pick up a lot of this as well. I think also too, let's go, one thing to point out on this slide I want to mention, since we have a lot of security focused folks here, right now in cloud security is really focusing, from what I have seen and what I'm looking at trends as well, is really around Kubernetes, but also around site recovery engineering as well, SRE, which is another subject in itself. So that's basically on how we're going to be able to dealing with issues with applications and making sure that we have the proper uptime, that we're able to solve problems, right? A lot of that is, a wide area to learn. Okay, so let's talk about salary. Now, as far as, cloud architect, it could be as low, and now this is directly from talent.com. This is just one example. Then I'll talk about ZipRecruiter and Glassdoor as well. So with talent.com, they had the average cloud salary at $149,000 per year. That's a pretty high salary. Now, entry-level positions were about $126,000 and up to $185,000. Okay, you could buy a nice car with $185,000, right? So that's not a bad role. Now, when we get to ZipRecruiter and Glassdoor, you could see that their averages with ZipRecruiter was about $153,000, and then with Glassdoor is about $137,000. Still six-figure salaries, right? Not a bad start in life, right? In a new career. So what I'm getting at is, that's the medium or the average. You may be starting out at $90K a year. Hopefully that's going to be good enough for you, right? But again, companies may pay 70, they may pay 100. It just all depends, right? So I always, if I'm working with someone, generally we sit down, we talk about what a reasonable salary is, and what are the expectations. A lot of that does come down to where you live as well. Okay, question. That's a great question. I never thought of it as a managerial role. A cloud architect is probably similar, and I really think the way I would describe a cloud architect as very similar to like a frontline engineer or someone that deals with people a lot. So that's pre-sales, I guess, is the way I would refer to it. Yeah, so there is some management to it though. And I think the management probably, yeah, you know, that's a really good question, because it's making me think of this a little different too, you know, because I never really thought of like cloud roles as manager roles. There are though cloud manager roles out there where you will manage. It looks like we have a few people waiting. Let me see. Let me admit them in. Okay. All right. So as far as yeah, so I guess the way I would answer that, Mary, is I would say it depends. It can very well be a management role, especially like if you're in enterprise architecture, like in a big company. But if you're working for like an IT vendor, a cloud vendor, an integrator, probably not. You're more of a what I would call a team player with the sales team or with the support team. But in an enterprise architecture role, you may very well be managing a lot of different types of people. So that definitely I've seen before. So great, great question. Yes, so it's yes, Oscar, exactly. It's really a sysadmin role in some respects, but it's a high level sysadmin role. Again, it's a hybrid role in a lot of cases. It depends on you know what side you're on. Are you on the sales side, or are you on the internal side or the customer side? Like I said, if you go to Bank of America, you go to any large organization, you're going to be doing quite a bit of a lot of planning, a lot of billing management, a lot of you know, a lot of, yeah, I guess that's a good point as well, Mary. Redundancy overlap is actually a good way to look at it. Again, like I had warned you before, you know, when we started, it's really hard to describe what a cloud architect is, because it's one of those roles where it depends. Are you working at this type of company? Yes, then here's probably what you're going to do. If you're working at this type of company, here's probably what you're going to be doing here. So the amount of hands-on work you do will likely be very different where you're working for a dedicated customer or you're an employee for a company, you know, managing their cloud. Sure, it's going to be very different. But if you get into the pre-sale side, design and all that, it's very different. So it really just depends. So excellent observation. And again, be aware that, and you'll see this as well when we get to LinkedIn, to the job boards, you'll see how one company is looking for this, and then you go to another company, it's totally different. So this is the thing to realize. Now, I will say though, once you specialize, so if you want to specialize in DevOps or security, then you're going to be focused on that. But if you want to be a generalist, then a cloud architect is a really great role to do, because you'll get your hands on in everything. All right, great questions and comments as well. All right, let's see here. Okay, so let's go to LinkedIn. And then I'm going to go after that to AWS. And we'll come back and we'll talk about the career path. So let me go ahead and share my other screen here. And all right, let me share that. All right, so I'm sharing my desktop now. All right, so what I'd like to do is go over to jobs here. And let me clear this. And I know I had a few different roles here. for that, do that again. All right, so if you go up here to searching for cloud architects, just as a simple like high level job description, you'll want to narrow it down, right? And I'll show you why. So right now there's 45,000 just in the US. So and also too, a lot of these roles, cloud architects, cloud engineers, they're going to be remote, a lot of remote roles. So you could be in Jacksonville, Florida, you could be in Tallahassee, you could be in, Provo, Utah, whatever, and work for a company in New York City. This is pretty common. So just be aware that probably 50 to 70% of the roles have a remote option to it, it seems. So if you're interested in that, this is a great role to consider. All right, so let's talk about some of these. Now, you'll see here it says Cloud Infrastructure Architect, Senior Cloud Systems Architect. So again, you'll see the titles are going to be very different, but let's look at this one here. This is remote. And let me go ahead and maximize this a little bit more. Okay. So this company here, they're looking for someone remote. 5 days ago, they had 8 applicants. Now, the salary range is $90,000 to $160,000. That's a pretty wide range. So that would concern me because it sort of seems like, well, maybe we'll take this and maybe we'll take that, right? I don't know. That's a really wide salary range. Usually the salary range should be no more than 10% difference in a lot of cases. But anyways, let's see what they have here. So this one here, client service delivery. They work with clients. So this is going to be a sales role. This is going to be someone that is going to train and coach people to work with engineers. You're going to be working with everything from Windows to Azure to Office, private clouds. And let's see what they want here. So they want a 4 years bachelor's degree, 6 years experience preferred though. They want someone that is solutions oriented, disciplined, detailed oriented, right? All those nice keywords. They want someone that is definitely in IT for quite a while. They're looking for like, this is one of those roles I like to joke, right? They're looking for like a whole data center in one person. That's pretty much what they want, right? SAN and NAS, iSCSI. Now, I'm going to be honest. I've been in IT for 25 years. I've worked for Brocade, EMC, VMware. No one uses NFS anymore. So they're looking for someone that clearly has been around a while. Okay, so what I'm getting at here, like here, if you look over here, they're looking for as well GCP. Okay, so they want GCP, they want PBX experience. This is one of those crazy roles. So I could see that they're saying, well, we probably need to just take anything we can get, right? Just really crazy. Now, what I also want to point out here is you'll want to go up here and select either, now, assuming here that you're looking for a new role in the cloud, you're probably going to look for entry level or associate. However, you'll see when I select this, it goes from 45 to 17,000. However, you shall see that there's still people that, I think these recruiters or HR, they don't really think about, or maybe take the time, I don't know what it is. Like they'll put in the job description, they want someone with 8 years of Kubernetes. Well, I don't think Kubernetes has been around 8 years. Or they'll put in another thing that I find hilarious is they'll want someone that's like a Cisco CCIE, and like, what does that have to do with the cloud? It has nothing to do with the cloud. It's just really weird. So you'll need some patience when you're going through these job descriptions. No question about it, because you'll see some of these will be really good and some of these will be, I think they don't really know what they're looking for. All right, so this one here, look, they're looking for someone to work with the Google Cloud partner. They want someone that knows Google Cloud. This one here, you're going to work with Google and the sales team. All right. Oh, that's great. I'm a top applicant. Isn't that wonderful? Okay. I'm over 50, so they won't hire me anyways. Okay. So this one here, a cloud architect. Okay. I'm going to just, again, don't take this the wrong way, right? There's some job sites out there that are really, really good to post your resume on. And there's some others that I would be very cautious of. I used to use Dice since it came out. It was like the place to go for IT consultants, like probably 10 plus years ago. And it seemed like, and the reason I know this is because like 5 years ago when I was looking for a job at the time, I'm fully self-employed now, so I don't really look for a job. But when I was looking, what I did is I put in, so what I did is I created a separate alias for every site I posted my resume to. It sounded like a pain, sort of like a pain in the butt, right? To have to do that. If you apply to, and that's job boards, right? So if you're applying to a job board like Dice, Indeed, LinkedIn, Monster, you want to create a separate alias because you will see more than likely, really quickly, the quality of the leads. And my challenge was with Dice and Indeed. It just seemed like I would get people calling me to be a life insurance agent. They would email me like, get a new bank account. And I knew it was coming from, whatever site because that was the alias, right? So whether they sell your information or they don't validate their customers or whatever, just be cautious. I'm not saying that Dice is a bad site. I'm just saying you may want to, if you're looking for a job, put in the right effort for the right locations or the right sites, right? Okay, I have some comments, it looks like. Let me see here. Yes, thank you. Yes, well-seasoned employee. Okay, great. Yeah, so, again, I'm just trying to give people insight. Okay, so let's take a second and, okay, so let's do this. All right, someone here, want to give me a city. We have time to do maybe one or two of these and then we'll have to move on. What city, let me see, I know someone put in the site. Does anyone here want to give me a city? Where do you live? Or where you want to move to? Someone who was in Texas, I think. I don't know where. Okay, let's see, Dallas. Okay, Dallas. Okay, Oscar's in Dallas and Princiana is in Houston. Lexi's in Houston. Okay. Okay, what's up with Houston? A lot of people from Houston today. Okay, great. Fine city. All right, so let's go over here and we're going to type in Houston. And when I was teaching, I think it was Quick Start or Simply Learn, I was teaching some of their cloud boot camps. I did have actually a student in Houston that got a entry-level cloud job after getting out of the boot camp. So that was cool. He was working at one of the large, I think it was gas drilling, Schulenburg or something. Had to do with petroleum, whatever it was. But anyways, so he started out like 75 a year. So he was pretty happy to, and it only took like maybe about 3 weeks after he got out of boot camp, and he was, working, handling like cloud support, so it was cool. All right, so let's look at this one here, cloud architect. Okay, so let me just talk about this one, Avanade. So they're sort of like the Australian, Accenture, I guess, is sort of the way I consider them. And they almost always require a degree. But let's see what they're looking for here. So this one here, they're looking for someone that is Microsoft Cloud, Azure. They're looking for 4 years experience. Okay, so I don't know if I consider 4 years experience as associate or entry level. Generally, associate is going to be 2 years or less, possibly 3. But generally, mid to senior is going to be typically 3 to 4 years or more. So this one here, they're looking for 3 years of pre-sales collaboration. See, they want someone that's going to go out there and meet with customers, solve problems, do whiteboards, do presentations, do designs. So again, oh, see this one here. If you have an MBA or a master's degree, this is a bonus. So again, there's certain companies out there guaranteed they're going to want to have at least a bachelor's. All right, let's take a look at this company that I don't know. Someone small. I don't know if they're small, but I haven't heard of them. Crown Castle. So they have 1,000 employees. Okay, so they're in telecom. Okay, so they're looking for full-time associate. Okay, now one thing to also look for, if you're on LinkedIn, you're looking for a new job, always look for how long it's been posted and the number of applicants. This will generally tell you whether or not a role is really good, or maybe it's not really as good as it might sound. And that's probably because of just a few things, like the requirements are probably not realistic, or they put a salary that's just too low, or they want someone, you know, with 12 years experience and an MBA in, I don't know, biology or some really crazy requirement, right? So when you see that, usually a job right now should probably have so generally the rule of thumb I use on LinkedIn is for every day there should be 2 to 3 applicants if it's a really good job, or it's for a company that people want to work for. If I see anything less than 3 or 4 a week, then that sort of tells me that there's probably something not right with the job. But maybe it's just a really specialized area they're looking for. Who knows? But looking at this is solutions architect, API, and SaaS. So that could be actually a little specialized. So let's see what they're looking for. This is a provider of shared infrastructure, cell towers, fiber, etc. What are they looking for? Okay. Okay, how about just some skills? Make it easy. Okay. Oh yeah, here we go again, right? 10 years. They want someone with 10 years software engineering. All right, again, this is not entry-level associate. It's not even mid-level, right? It's actually senior level. Kafka, okay, Kinesis. Okay, these are both highly specialized skills. So that made sense, right? Why there wasn't a lot of applicants. All right, let's go look at 1 or 2 more here. And okay, Pegasystems, I hear them quite a bit. They seem to do a lot of hiring, and some of their jobs have been pretty good. So let's see what they have here. They want 3 years of experience driving technical and non-technical. Okay, 3 years is actually pretty much the cutoff for associate, so that's a good start. They want someone that has experience with application servers, Java, J2E. Honestly, this seems more of a web developer role than a cloud architect. They want agile. No. Okay, I read that right. I thought it was agile development. Okay. Yeah, so not really too much there from a technical perspective. Hard to tell, but let's see. They had 6 days ago. I don't see anyone applying. So that's sort of interesting. All right, let's look at Microsoft Cloud Solutions Architect. 2 days ago, and they had 5 applicants. That's about what I would expect if it's a really good role or a really good company. All right, so they are looking for cloud architects. They want to gather customer partner insights. They want you to understand the customer's preferences and business needs. They want you to leverage the Microsoft architectures. Okay, yeah, trusted advisor, professional experience. This one is 5 years experience. And they want you to have worked directly in the cloud as well for 5 years. So again, technical requirements. Okay, again, this is like a data center in a role is what they're looking for. And one last one here, this looks like oil and gas. This is for NOV, or is it NOV? I guess so. Nothing spectacular here that I see, but they want someone that actually has gas and oil experience. So I guess if you, and then 4-year technical degree in control engineering. Okay, so this is really not a cloud architect role. This is more like a solutions architect role. Again, I didn't see too many roles so far. And then if I take this up another level, how are we doing on time? Okay, so let me just close this out here. All right, so if I look at cloud security, so we narrow the roles down. Actually, we don't narrow them down, actually, do we? 4,000, so that's about the same. So another thing too you might want to look at is narrow these down to like the past week or the past month. That'll bring it down to about 1,000 results. And the reason you want to do that is because a lot of the roles, you'll notice, will have been posted like 3 months ago, and they're still, like, if a role's active for more than 60 days, I wouldn't even waste my time looking at it, because it's pretty obvious that they just left it there, or they have some other issues where they, you know, whatever it is, right? All right, cloud security engineer at Fidelity. They are looking for someone that can run containers, a lot of container work. See, so containers are going to be Docker, basically Kubernetes for the orchestrator, could be any number of other solutions. Design, scale, IaaS, PaaS, right? 2 to 4 years. Okay, so 2 to 4 years, that's within the associate range, so that's great. They want someone that understands a cloud provider. They want someone that knows Kubernetes. So this is really a specialized role, right? You're going to need to know Kubernetes. Not really a lot of development, but they want someone that can do YAML or JSON. So YAML and JSON is how we would declare basically the configs in Kubernetes as an example. So you need to have an idea of how to start a container cluster is pretty much what they want, how to put together. All right, and then, you know, again, we can spend hours doing that. I won't. This one here, I'm just looking for something that has like a really good principal cloud architect. Okay. This one here is senior cloud security engineer, but this is senior, right? So they're saying senior, but they pop up as associate. What is the number of years? Again, you know, yeah, so they're looking for a lot of compliance. Again, this is definitely a big role. Yeah, anyways, I won't spend any more time on it for time purposes, but I just want to look at one more. Let me check. Let me go look at the past 24 hours. All right, so that brings it down even more. And I think, see, senior industry. I don't like how people don't pay attention. Lead cloud security consultant, 100% remote. That's on DICE. Senior engineer. Okay, so this one here has just a simple title. That's what I was looking for. Cloud security engineer, right? It's pretty simple. Cloud and security engineer. Doesn't say architect, but again, it could be either or. All right, so this one here, they want someone with a bachelor's or equivalent experience. So, okay, so they're saying if you have experience, then a degree may not be that important. So that's what I want to see. That's really the kind of roles that I would work with, for example, potential candidates on to sort of look for, because you don't want to waste your time applying for roles that want an MBA in, business and, a technical degree with it as well, right? If you don't have that. So you got to narrow it down as quickly as possible. But they do want, someone that has certifications, but 1 year of experience. Okay. So one of the things too that a good coaching program will do is they're going to work with you to put together like a project that you could put on GitHub to show that you could put together an architecture, or you could actually run scans against the cloud and document this in a video or something, because these are the things that might help you sort of validate some experience, right? So this is actually a good role. This looks like it's all reasonable. Just average AWS security services. They want someone that has extensive experience, though. They want centralized log management, SIEM technologies, okay. They want some compliance, written and oral communications, and yeah, so this is actually good. Abilities: conduct a vulnerability scan, apply techniques to detect host and network-based intrusions. Okay, simple enough, right? Interpret using tools like NSLookup, ping, etc. Right? These are your networking 101 tools. Okay, let's look at the comments. Yeah, so good question. I'll talk about certifications here in a minute. So that's a good question. Alexi's asking a preference. Yeah. So here's another thing I've noticed. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, and you don't see a lot of AWS or Google here. You do see a lot of Azure, a ton of Azure. All the major employers here have Azure. I actually don't work with Azure. I don't like Azure. I never liked it. I don't say I didn't like it. I'm just not familiar with it. And there's just too much work in AWS and Google for me to want to muck with Microsoft, right? I know enough to get around, but I wouldn't sell myself as like an Azure engineer, right? I'm not going to do that because I don't need to. And I specialize in Google and AWS, and that's my sort of area. But I will say, though, Azure is in high demand. So if you're like in a town that has a lot of Microsoft, like Atlanta or Orlando, Orlando is big with Microsoft. But I was also told, like, I think in Austin, or is it Austin or Dallas, that Microsoft has a huge foothold. Maybe Houston as well. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. So I think a lot of this comes down to know your market. On the other hand, too, a lot of the roles are remote, so you don't need to like worry if you're going to look for a job that is going to require you to go on premise every day. Then sure. But in reality, if you want to specialize in Azure, Google, AWS, you're probably going to have a lot of opportunities either way because so many roles are remote. All right, great questions, comments. Okay, yeah, so AWS is definitely, I think at the last time, I had some stats put together on that as well. AWS was probably about 68% of the market, I think. And then Azure was about 28 maybe. And then Google had the rest. I think Google is only about 13 or 14% of the market. So a lot of that is hard to tell because even the analyst firms, even tell you that with Microsoft, they don't disclose, like, they include like Office 365 in their cloud market share. So it's hard to know, like, when you compare infrastructure as a service to infrastructure as a service to infrastructure as a service, I would think, AWS has 90% in some markets, and Microsoft and Google probably have only a little bit, right? So I think it's all based on the market, but also too, Microsoft, isn't like sort of like giving you apples to apples, if you know what I mean, right? So it's hard to know, but I'm just going on the numbers put out by the analyst firms. Okay, so great comments. All right, so that's LinkedIn. Let's go to AWS. And we'll be done about 11:15 or so, and I'll leave time for questions as well. Okay, so with AWS, for those that, anyone here, has anyone worked with AWS yet? Out of curiosity. Okay, no. Mary says no. How about Oscar? Have you? Lexi, Lena, Fabi, Princiana, anyone? Just curious. Okay, okay. Oscar uses GCP. Lexi uses AWS. Okay, great. All right, so it looks like we have okay, a little bit of a mixture, so that's great. Okay. So anyways, if you haven't used AWS, just like every other cloud provider, they do have a free tier that you can subscribe and use. So I encourage you to do that if you do want to play around and learn. There's also free credits as well. If you're a startup, you can go ahead and go to AWS Activate. And if you have like a startup company, they'll give you startup credits if they could validate your website and your business EIN or something like that. So there's a few things they validate. It takes about a week, and they'll give you, thousands of dollars in credit to learn on, right? So just some thoughts there. All right, so what you want to do is sign up for the free tier, free credits if you can, if you don't already have an account. And so what does a cloud architect do every day? Well, in reality, a cloud architect in a lot of organizations, as we know, may not be actually in the console doing any work. They may be just whiteboarding. They may be talking about cloud architectures. They may also having to work with customers to deploy services. So maybe you'll go in and you'll need to work with the customer on understanding, for example, how to right-size their environment, or how to purchase savings plans, right? So these are some of the tasks that a cloud architect may do. Excuse me. Now, again, it's all going to be dependent on the role that you're in. So for example, a lot of cost management will be worked on. You may need to work with customers to deploy data services. It could all depend, right? Maybe you need to just deploy clusters and all that, right? So it could be just EC2 instances. Whatever it is, you'll need to really understand how to deploy services, at least at a high level. Now, if you're a cloud engineer, you're going to be getting into this every day, deep diving, configuring, IAM, right? A lot of stuff. You may have to go and launch an instance. You may also need to put together, for example, your own image. You'll have to create your own custom image. So just be aware that there's a lot of different tasks you may need to do. Now, on the other hand, if you're a cloud architect, you may need to do whiteboarding. So for example, here, If it's an online whiteboard, it could be Lucidchart, it could be Miro, it could be the Zoom board, whatever you're using. For example, here, maybe one day, like you might have to talk about Redshift networking. So this is something, that, with the customer, I had to walk through on how to set up a VPC, why you need a VPC for each cluster, or maybe they didn't need one. What was their requirements, right? So this is going to be whiteboarding online, for example. Now, if you go in person, you'll have, a physical, but not that you can see it, over here, but a physical whiteboard, and you'll have to draw things out. So this will be your day. You'll need to put together architectures. For example, here, we have 3 virtual private clouds. In the world of AWS, a virtual private cloud is really like a container of services or an isolated environment. Another way that AWS describes a VPC is it's like a virtual data center. So for example, here, we may have a virtual data center here, and we're going to have Redshift deployed in there. We're going to have actually multiple nodes of Redshift. In Redshift, we need our leader node, and then we also need to have the data nodes, or the database nodes, called the Redshift nodes. Then we might have Spectrum deployed as part of that. And then down here, we're going to have other services like S3. Maybe we need to import, for example, our data. Maybe we need to import data into S3 and then optimize it with Redshift Spectrum before we actually import any data. We don't need to import it if we're using Redshift, but maybe we want to get a little bit of a performance boost, whatever that reason is. So many things we'll need to talk about, right? Now, Redshift has an endpoint. I need to connect that endpoint, maybe to on-prem. I need to make sure that that SQL service on-prem can actually connect to Redshift for whatever reason, right? So there's a lot of cool things you're going to have to do every day. It's just a question of, I think, getting some practice in this to talk confidently in how you would deploy a cloud. Because one of the things that I would probably request that you do is practice, put together some whiteboards and then record yourself talking about how the cloud would work. These are things, believe it or not, will boost your confidence. You'll be able to make things better. And then when you go into an interview, you're going to be like, okay, I already know how to say this, right? Because the last thing you want to do in this competitive job market is to make simple mistakes that maybe with a little practice, you could have just really, shined, right? So comments here. Okay, so congrats, Princiana, on the Cloud Practitioner cert. And I'm going to talk about certs here actually right about now. So anyways, I just wanted to touch on a few things to give everybody some ideas. To keep on schedule though, let's continue on. So you could see like how an online whiteboard would work and then visualize doing a whiteboard in person in like a conference room. And this is something that we already saw, right, on some of the job descriptions that were pre-sales. It's about dealing with people. It's about, working on architectures, solving problems. All right, so I think that's, all right, any questions on anything else before I move on? Okay. All right, great feedback and everything. And for those that just joined, in the chat, if you go up to the top, there is a download link, a Dropbox link, I should say, for the presentation, as well as some other documents as well. And then I'm going to load that cloud ebook. I forgot to load it, so I'll do that right before we go. All right, so let me bring up my screen here and go back to the presentation. Screen 3, okay. It's 1. I got 3 monitors here. Sometimes I lose track of where I'm at. Okay, all right, so let's talk about career path. So what is the career path for a cloud architect? And I think, really the answer here is there isn't really a right or wrong one. It's about what you need. It's about what you're going to fit in, right? Some of you have been working in IT before. Some of you are already in the cloud. Some of you have worked in the IT security. Some of you may have worked in development. I've trained people that literally were not Uber drivers, but they were like FedEx home delivery. One guy was a FedEx home delivery driver. He went to one of the boot camps, and this is for another company that I was teaching him for. And it took him probably, I want to say, took him about 6 months to finish everything, to get his certificate. And then he took like 2 certs. And then I think about 3 months later, I heard from him saying that he got on with a company called Rackspace. Now, Rackspace, if you're not familiar with them, and actually he was in Texas as well. I think they're based out of Texas still. I don't remember what city, but he was in their support center. So, started out maybe making $50K a year, but it beat what he was doing before, right? And then there was a young lady in Atlanta who was a nurse. Okay. Now, honestly, a nurse is very technical in a whole different way. But generally nurses are good with people. So she just decided that, with the COVID events and everything, that it was just too much. She wasn't going to deal with all the nonsense that they had to deal with, I guess, at the hospitals. And she was a ER nurse. So I guess they made good money, right? But it was a stressful job. But she also knew that if she got into IT, I think she would make more actually doing less work. So, I think it's all about, what is the right route for you, is the point I'm making. So one of the things that you might want to consider is to take cloud bootcamp. Now, cloud bootcamps are going to range anywhere from 3 weeks full-time or a month to a part-time, maybe up to 6 months. So they're all different. Some are probably better than others in different respects. I think also too, it just depends on what you need. Now, I've taught boot camps for Simply Learn. I've taught boot camps for Global Knowledge. I've taught boot camps for my own as well. I have a boot camp that we teach at TECHCOMMANDERS. And then what was the other? Oh, Quick Start as well. I will say that they vary widely, and the cost could be $5,000 to $20,000 depending on what are they offering, right? So to be honest, if you're already in IT, you probably don't need the boot camp. If you're new to IT, the boot camp really does serve as a way for you to understand what is Linux and what is the cloud and what is DevOps, what is Azure, what is AWS, right? So these are the things that I think really do help people new to IT. But again, if you're already in IT and you have certifications, maybe this isn't going to help you as much. But always take courses, right? Take courses anywhere you could get them. I would also recommend, if you're in college, like if you're college age, there are internships as well available. I've seen a few on LinkedIn where if you were able to pass, like I think the cloud practitioner exam, there was like a city in North Carolina, I think, Cary, or I don't know, Raleigh, it's near Raleigh. I think it was actually NetApp. They actually had a cloud internship, but I think it was NetApp. I think they're actually out of that area too. I remember it's like literally last year when I saw this. So what I'm getting at is there could be internships. And if you're in college and you're in that area, they will pay you a small amount of money. You could deploy cloud, get experience, and then chances are when you're done with your college, they'll offer you a job. So a lot of opportunities there. Get cloud certifications. I will talk about certifications here in the next session, coming up. All right, so how do you become a cloud architect? I mean, how do you really become a cloud architect, right? I mean, again, there's no what I would call perfect roadmap. There's no one size fits all, right? It's all about you. And the one thing that I don't like to see is a lot of these companies will try to sell you on one size fits all, when in reality, that's really not what I think people need. Okay, let's see what we have. So looks like Lexi. Okay, thank you, Lena. Great presentation. Mary, thank you. Yes, great. Lexi is saying Udemy and Coursera. Udemy, honestly, most employers don't take Udemy seriously. I know that, and I teach on Udemy, so I don't do a lot of teaching anymore on Udemy for many different reasons, but I do have some courses on there. But the thing with Udemy is that the quality of most instructors in IT now has gone down quite a bit on Udemy, because anyone can do a course on Udemy. And I'm not saying that, all the courses are terrible. I'm not saying that. It's just that employers don't take Udemy seriously. I think some employees are taking Udemy more seriously because there is the Udemy for Business. It's just that if you get like a certificate of Udemy, most employers will be like, okay, well, great. You took a course from someone that may be qualified, right? That's been sort of the feedback I have received in the past. I would say Coursera is good. I would also recommend any number of different platforms out there. And again, I'm biased in the sense that I have my own platform. I personally like O'Reilly. I think O'Reilly is the best bargain in the world for IT people right now, just because with O'Reilly for I think it's $39 a month. I know $39 sounds like the end of the world to a lot of people. I sort of mean that sarcastically, because a lot of people that are in IT get into IT, they don't want to pay $39 for anything. But if their employer pays for it, it's okay. But here's the thing, it's an investment. And here's the point with O'Reilly, what I'm getting at is O'Reilly, if you sign up for O'Reilly, you not only get all the recorded courses you want, but they have awesome live training all the time. So if you, and I've been a teacher on O'Reilly for years. I'm not teaching anything actively right now, but I've taught Google Cloud, I've taught AWS there. And so the way the courses work on O'Reilly is when you pay that subscription, right, for $39, you could take courses in DevOps with live instructors. And it's all part of the membership. And then on top of that, you get all the books, all the O'Reilly, all the Pearson books, all the Wiley books, right? So you get everything for $39. And if you pay annually, it's what, 300 and something? But what I'm getting at, if you really want to get great courses actually at a really fair price and have live courses and recorded courses and all the books that you could possibly read, O'Reilly is probably the best out there. But I will say that inde.com is also good. And then I would also recommend, Pluralsight does have some good courses. Cloud Academy as well. But here's the thing too, I think too, it depends on the Cloud Guru, I think they were bought by, I think it was Pluralsight, I think. I mean, the Cloud Guru, they were the best in AWS courses, but I wouldn't go anything past AWS with them, because their Google Cloud courses were pretty elementary even last year, and even Azure courses. And that's the feedback a lot of people have. But I'm not saying that the cloud guru has terrible courses in anything at all. I'm just sort of saying there's just certain platforms that really specialize in certain things. So I don't have a right or wrong answer to that. I think it just depends on what you're willing to pay and what you really want to learn and how you want to learn it. Okay, so great question now. All right, so let's talk about what is really the approach I would recommend. So first, always set reasonable expectations. And what is a reasonable expectation? I don't know. You know, as a IT professional for 25 plus years, it all depends on you, right? I can't tell you what is reasonable expectations, but I can tell you to look at your expectations and look at what is really on the market, what is available. So if you're looking to make $200,000 a year and you're new to the cloud, maybe that might be unreasonable. I'll leave it to you to figure out. I'll give you some feedback on it, but you'll need to think about it, right? On the other hand, I've worked with people that are, really technically savvy, and they could deploy just about any application in the cloud, but they're not really good at selling. So maybe they need to focus on a role that is in the back end than the front end, right? It just depends. So whatever these expectations are for a job, the salaries, or how fast you're going to become a cloud architect, this is something you'll need to work on, right? I would though say expect between 5 to 8 months to constantly learn. What I mean is it's going to take a lot of time. And I wouldn't say this is full-time. I would say this is about 20 hours a week. You'll want to commit for a few months at least to sort of get ready to interview, because even though you have the certs, the employers may not even care or validate them. They want you to whiteboard. They want you to answer questions. They want you to go through a workflow, right? So these are the things you want to really prepare for. You'll want to spend money. You're going to have to spend money on certifications because most of the time they're not free. So there's an investment there. And I'm going to talk about what certs you might want to focus on. And then you'll want to learn from both free and paid courses, because there's a lot of great free courses, but there's a lot of paid courses that are great as well. And I wouldn't have a barrier of $10 on Udemy or something, hold up your learning. Now, will the employer care if you, took a course on Udemy? Probably not. On the other hand, maybe they will. I don't know. These are things you want to look at, right? So look at all the options. Also, too, look at the free courses like with meetups. Like, you're here, right? It's free. I'm giving you my time to help you, get your careers a little bit more in order, or to maybe help you focus on what you really want to do in life. So meetups are great. A lot of free courses on meetups. Definitely consider those. Also, too, the vendors have great courses. So look at AWS. They're always hosting these free webinars. As far as coaching, if you're new to IT or you're going from something really different in IT, maybe having a coach work with you could be useful as well. And then always set goals and keep them, right? As with anything else with life. So if you know that you need to get 3 certifications in 3 months, make that a goal to get it done. All right, so let's talk about certifications. Why is that not? Okay. All right, so as far as how we doing on time, we've got, okay, great. Yeah, I'm just about done with this, and then we'll go to questions. As far as why get certified. So certifications not only will provide your employer, but you as well, confidence in your skill sets. So go out there and take an AWS cert or a Google Cloud cert. And maybe some people will want to focus on AWS. Some people will want to focus on Azure. There's no right or wrong answer there. So whatever you want to target, maybe take each of them and then figure out, maybe I just prefer AWS over Google, whatever that works out to be, right? So the certifications are important to the employers in most cases. So they want to see that. And I'll be honest as well, if you're going to be a cloud architect, you'll want to get as many certs as you can over time, because chances are if you're going to work for a partner of the cloud, like the cloud partner or the vendor, then they're going to require you to get certified, because that goes on the books for them as credits or being enabled. So that's important. So certifications are really inexpensive compared to, paying Google, for a 5-day class, right? That could be what, $5,000–6,000. Now, also to certifications, when you pass them, a lot of the time now they're online. So you can go ahead and just post them on LinkedIn, might get more attention for you as well. So what do you start with? And again, that's $1 million question. If I had to pick one with the experience that I have now, I would probably focus on AWS still, just because that's the, what do they say, the 1,000-pound gorilla in the room pretty much everywhere. However, I would probably then consider Google Cloud, just because the demand is growing, and it's, they're definitely gaining a lot of market share. And there is a really higher demand for Google right now in some locations than others. So that's just my thought. And I prefer Google as well. For me, I don't really get into Azure. I just never got into it. So that's just my opinion. But again, you'll need to figure out what you want to consider. It's, don't let anyone tell you do AWS, right? It's your call. You make the decision. It's your career is the way, I put it to people. All right, so what would be some of the certs to consider? Honestly, though, if you're going to get a cert, I always recommend you start out simple and then move up the ladder, right? The reason is, even though it might cost you a little bit more time and a little bit more money, it'll give you that escalation in knowledge that you're going to need for the interviews. Generally, a good technical interviewer will test you like a certification exam. They're going to have questions that are going to be pretty low level, really, well, I should say high level. In other words, not really detailed. Then they're going to go down a little bit deeper, maybe, medium altitude. And then they're going to really dive into the weeds at the end to figure out, does this person really know their stuff, or do they not, right? So I would consider the practitioner exam from AWS and the solutions architect. To be honest, that's really, in most organizations that have AWS, that's really the de facto standard. So definitely consider that. If you're looking at Google, look at the digital leader. That's the comparable of the practitioner, or the professional cloud architect. And then with Azure, look at Azure fundamentals or the solutions architect. Again, if you're going to be a cloud architect, these are the ones that are focused on the architecture, or what I call the use case for the cloud, like for the cloud practitioner. Like, why would you use AWS? Or what service would you use to solve what problem, right? All right, let's talk about training options. Now, there's, of course, a lot of different training options out there. They're going to vary based on cost and quality. I had mentioned that, right? Some courses on Udemy are really good. Some courses on Udemy are absolutely not really worth your time. So that's up to you to decide, right? Some courses as well on some of the platforms that I mentioned are really good. And they're really good with certain vendors. But then seems like, when you get too far out of your specialty area, it is hard to really have the same level, right? So I always tell students to just, be aware that, one platform may work for you while another one may not, right? I can't promise you that you'll like Cloud Academy over Tech Commanders or over O'Reilly, right? I don't know. That's, it's up to you. Okay. So the point is that understand that there's free and paid training. It's going to vary in quality. Cloud boot camps, on average, you're looking between $4,000 and $6,000. And that's true with Quick Start, with Simply Learn, Flatiron School's another one. Our cloud boot camp that we have is only $2,000. Just because we're small, we don't have a lot of overhead. I don't need to charge you, because one of the things too that people don't realize is with these cloud boot camps, when they have for example, if you go to Simply Learn or you go to Quick Start, they'll have like a college name there. Well, that college name might be Hofstra University. It might be UNF. It might be University of California, right? Sure, having a nice name on your certificate is good. But what they don't realize is that students don't realize is that that school has nothing to do with the training. It's usually the cloud boot camp company. They hire, they develop the training. And the only thing that happens is that that school gets a fee paid to them for every student to have their name on that certificate. That's what people don't realize. I started asking questions. I said, I'm teaching this cloud boot camp, and what does UC have to do with this? They don't. Anyways, it explained to me that it's nothing but a royalty payment for using their logo and their name. That's all it is. So again, there's a lot of overhead in these cloud boot camps. And I've seen some as high as 10,000 as well. So be aware. Okay, coaching. So coaching is a great option before an interview, before, for example, you're ready to develop a system, put it in place, to get some help, to build your confidence, right? Also, too, seminars and events. AWS, Google, they do hold a lot of free events, as well as Azure. So again, just try to see what's out there for free. Look at LinkedIn events. There's a ton of great events there. Coaching. Now, as far as coaching is really an investment. It's going to cost money, of course. A good coach is going to probably, charge you $100 to $200 an hour on average. But the goal of the coach is to maximize your time to get your questions answered, to provide you feedback on how you interview, how you prepare. Also, too, it's about building that confidence as well. So it's really an investment in you. And sure, it costs money, but this is something that you may want to consider if you feel that $85,000 job is better than, that $30,000 job that you have now. So these are things that I always tell students to consider. Don't look at, $100 here and there when it could mean tens of thousands of dollars immediately difference. Okay, so what is coaching going to cost? $100 to $200 an hour. Generally, you'll get a report back. You'll get a one-on-one experience. Also, the goal is to help you, right? Let's talk about interviews now. And then I've got probably another, 10 slides, and then we're done. And if there's any questions, feel free to post them in the chat, or I'll go ahead and turn it over to the mic here as well in a minute. All right, so interviews. When you're preparing for an interview in the cloud, it's not really that much different than any other interview at a high level. It will get complex at a technical level with a lot of companies, and I'll explain why. Your first interview, though, you should always feel it's probably your hardest, right? The reason is because you're going to need to build that confidence. You need to get the feel for, how is this going to go? I don't know, maybe, again, if you haven't been in IT and, you had service jobs before, an interview at Hardee's or at Target is going to be somewhat different than what you have at, a large company like Bank of America or BB&T or Truist or whatever, right? So these are the things to be aware of. So it might feel overwhelming. That's normal. But your second interview, you should be building up some confidence. And the third one, you should definitely go in there and feel totally confident in yourself. And also, too, as part of that confidence is to not answer every question like you're the expert. It's to answer every question honestly, because a good technical interviewer is going to be able to read between the lines. I do interviews for companies as well. And, I can tell you right now, I usually give people leeway. And if I feel, they're pushing the envelope, I'm honest about it. I don't care. It's, the company I'm representing, they're paying me to give them a good candidate. So this is one of the things you have to realize. So work hard. It's going to be uncomfortable. It could be overwhelming. No question about it. Even to this day, as confident as I am, I don't like having to do interviews. Sometimes, I'll get suckered in on LinkedIn. Oh, this is great job for you. You'd be perfect. We're going to pay you this. And, you're going to have a nice yacht on the side or something. They'll make you promises. Then you go through and then you realize they're all full of crap, right? So this is the thing that you get. So so the point here is, don't be disappointed if you don't get it the first time or the second time, but by the third time, you need to really be ready. All right, so interview techniques. Let's talk about some of these techniques. So cloud computing is really a wide area. You can't know everything about it, right? You really can't be an expert in AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, Alibaba, Oracle, right? All at the same time. Even though there's a lot of people that think they are, they may be very, very good at it, but the reality is you have to specialize at first and then generalize to a certain point. But just be aware there's that level where you're going to have to realize that cloud computing is really wide. There's just a lot to learn. Let me shut this off. Sorry about that. So know your marketplace, right? So if you're in Houston, you're in Dallas, you're in Jacksonville, you're in DC, get to learn your market. Learn who are the big employers for cloud in your area. Look at what they have for jobs, right? Try to figure out what they're looking for as a prospective cloud architect. Always be polite and show up on time. I know it sounds elementary, but you will be surprised by how many people cannot show up on time. If you don't show up on time to an employer, it shows that you're probably not responsible. Now, sure, things can happen, so you need to go a little bit early. Even if you have to wait 15 minutes, so what? You wait 15 minutes, it's better than showing up 10 minutes late and having to feel like, a little silly. I will say that if you have an interviewer that has a military background, they probably won't be very forgiving. They'll look somewhere else, right? Because your first impression is so important. Now, what about if it's on Zoom? Okay, great. If you have your first interview on Zoom, well, you don't have to worry about the commute, but what you should worry about is make sure you have the plugin ready. Make sure you initialize a session. Try not to come up with excuses on why you can't log in. But, people do get things happen and, be polite about it. Maybe they'll be forgiving. Also, to research the company, right? Never go into an interview where the interviewer especially like the manager or human resources, asks you, what do you know about our company, right? These are things that you should have a really good answer to. Now, if you're on LinkedIn, most of you probably are LinkedIn, are on LinkedIn probably with your profile. You're probably looking for jobs maybe. Now, I did want to point out is you should go into LinkedIn and make sure you select. Now, there's this little on your profile, your main page, there's this open to. So you want to select open to work or provide services as well if you want to consult. These are things that you should do to get the widest reach on LinkedIn. Also, too, if you're a military veteran, LinkedIn does provide you a 1-year free subscription to premium. That includes LinkedIn Learning as well. So LinkedIn Learning is another option as well for learning cloud. So they have some great courses there. I actually have a course on VMware, AWS Cloud and VMware there. I also did Cloud Plus for them as well years ago. So they have a good platform as well. And that does include the free training with them. So again, if you're a military veteran, click on this link here, sign up, and they will verify your service through like ID.me. So that's one consideration. Okay, and lastly, let's talk about some common interview questions. So if you're going to interview for a cloud architect role, some of the questions at a high level could be like this. Can you provide us an example of a time when you designed a cloud architecture? Okay, well, if you've never designed a cloud architecture, you'll need to come up with a good answer on, what you've done from a training perspective or boot camp. Well, here's what I done, and I did this on GitHub. If you have it on GitHub, that allows the interviewer to reference it, and that's even better. They like that organization generally. What would be your primary reasons for selecting virtual machines based on cost? Okay, so a lot of the virtual machines of the cloud are going to vary based on the amount of memory, the processing power, also to the config, of course. But what about features like GPUs, for example, or security enablement as well? So there's a lot of different things that we have to be aware of with virtual machines. So generally, when I see a question like this, what would be your primary reason for selecting a VM? Generally, if the customer is cost conscious and performance is not a requirement, then maybe the cost is okay. If you don't have like a peak load to design around, then getting a cheaper VM is okay. So these are the things you have to understand. The use case, right? Excuse me. Okay, why would we need a dedicated cloud connection to AWS? Okay, well, that's a common question. So they're asking you, why would they need direct connect to on-prem from AWS? Well, it could be because there's performance requirements. You need to have a lot of bandwidth. And most importantly, is your company can afford to pay for it. So a lot of those things go into that. Another question could be, what kind of cloud platforms or projects have you worked on? Again, this is where they're sort of asking you question number one, but in a different manner. So talk about what you've done, how you did it, and why you did it that way. So if you've designed a cloud for a nonprofit, and that nonprofit had 100 seats of virtual machines, and they also had so many terabytes of storage, give that picture to the interviewer. Paint that picture by describing it. If they're able to visualize, okay, Joe or Lexi or Lena, really talked confidently and accurately about what they did, that's a good sign to them. Okay, the last one to cover for today is, why would you select the platform AWS over MS Azure as a migration choice? Well, first of all, you want to understand why the customer is choosing AWS or Azure. Or if you're inquiring with the customer, why, what they have, how did you come up with AWS or Azure? So for example, if the customer was looking for something such as a platform that supported .NET, then the answer would be Azure, right? That's the best option. The reality is that AWS and Google do not support .NET even close like they do in Azure. So these are just some things to be aware of. So it all depends on the use case. So if you're going to select a cloud platform as a target for migration, it's about understanding what the use case is and also, as well, technically validating the requirements. So as a cloud architect, it's your role to design not only the architecture, but how you're going to migrate from on-prem to that cloud architecture. So what do you have to do that? You're going to have to look at what is the application? What is it written in? Are we able to support it in the target platform? Is SQL a requirement? Yes or no? What type of SQL? Can I migrate it to a database engine in the cloud or not? What about my key structure with SQL, right? These are some of the things to look at. But then we also need to consider as well, how do users access the cloud? How are we going to integrate connections? What about APIs? These are things that we need to look at from not only a high level, but a technical level as well. So there's a lot there to consider. All right, so as far as additional resources, now AWS does have great free training. It's called the Free Skill Builders training. The link for that is there. Azure also has some really good free courses as well. There's a site called Rivia, and that is Richard's site. He's a cloud mentor that I work with quite a bit, and he teaches some of our webinars as well. And he has a lot of good free training on his site as well. The GCP Gurus has a lot of technical information there about Google Cloud mainly. Our site, TECHCOMMANDERS, we have mainly focused courses on AWS and Google and blockchain as well. We do have some IT security courses, as well as a little bit different than other platforms, side hustles. And what I mean by side hustles is how you can make additional money on the side, how to make money on Fiverr, Upwork. Maybe some of you will be able to work a full-time job and you have time to make a little extra money here and there, right? That's what a side hustle is. Also, two meetup groups. I know in our meetup group, we hold at least one meetup group every 2 months. We're probably going to increase it again in September to about March. What we find is that things sort of slow down in the summer, so it's we're not as active. So that'll be the goal, and we will have a couple free courses coming up. One is going to be on DevOps, how to become a DevOps engineer. And then we'll also have the Cloud Practitioner course, and I believe the Google Cloud Digital Leader as well, or the Architect, I don't remember. But again, those are the free courses. Then there's also paid courses available as well. All right. With that said, if there's any questions, please feel free to speak up. There's also a program called Cloud Interview Ace that I run. That is basically a quarterly session that I hold. It's about 7 weeks, so it's about almost 2 months. And it's about 80 hours of training that you get, not to mention one-on-one coaching and group coaching as well. That information is there. Also, too, I have a book called How to Become a Cloud Engineer with No Experience. I'm going to add that to the Dropbox link. I just need to do it right now. Then also, too, I have some other books. These are just one of them. How to pass the Google Cloud Engineer exam, for example. I do have several others as well on Google Cloud. All right, so I wanted to thank everybody for joining. And if I could be of assistance, feel free to reach out.